Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mindshare 2025 Virtual Summit. I'm Kelly Chang. I'm the CMO here at Goldcast, and I'm thrilled to kick off what's going to be an incredible half day of really, really insightful and actionable B2B marketing strategies. We have an incredible lineup of sessions today, from our opening session right now on why Mindshare matters in the modern B2B marketing era. And then we'll have an exclusive look at our product launch of Recording Studio. And then we'll also have some expert panels on building event content that lives forever, and then also using recorded video for maximum impact. Great to see that the chat is blowing up here. I love to see that, we have a lot of people coming in from everywhere. We've got Columbus, Ohio, got Denver, actually flew in from Denver back to Boston yesterday. We've got Germany. So we are truly, truly global. Let me know where you're joining in from. And before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. This virtual event is being recorded. We will give access to everybody, the on-demand version, so don't worry if you can't attend every session live. We want this to be a very, very community-centric and interactive event, so please share your thoughts in the chat. Use the Q&A tab to submit your questions for our speakers and hosts. And we also have a giveaway. We are giving away 3 $500 gift cards to lucky attendees. And we'll also share a list of great video gear items so you can turn your home office into a recording studio. So think cameras, microphones, lights, but of course you can use the $500 for really anything that you want. Our winners will be announced during our final session today that starts at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And to qualify, you just have to attend 3 of the first 4 sessions today. Starting right now, you are entered to win one of $500 gift cards. Before we, jump in and having me introduce our guest here, I wanted to take a step back and really, really talk about Mindshare Marketing and define what it is. So I've got this slide here that kind of just defines it a little bit. At its core, Mindshare is about capturing attention and building trust during that 95% of the time when your buyers are not actively in market. We all have heard different stats, but the 95-5 rule is that at any given time, only 5% of your target audience is actually actively in market to purchase, and 95% is not. So what happens to that 95? So Mindshare is the familiarity and the preference your brand has established before someone actually starts to search for solutions. Traditional demand generation focuses on capturing that 5% who are showing intent signals. But by that point, because of the way that buying journeys are, preferences are already largely formed. You've basically already made your shortlist and decided. So if you're competing in a really crowded space, this is really important. Mindshare Marketing really flips this approach. It's about investing in content that positions your brand as that trusted authority before those intent signals appear. And so when your buyers actually do start their formal buying process, you're already on their mental shortlist. So that's really, the whole concept of Mindshare Marketing. I'd love to hear in the chat what you all think about this. I also am going to be kicking off a poll right now. I want to know, how your team is currently building Mindshare before intent signals appear. So you can be creating video content, you can be publishing educational thought leadership content, building up your social media presence. You could start a business podcast, you could start a community. You may not be actively thinking about Mindshare today, and you may be still wondering what Mindshare Marketing is. So head over to the polls tab that's just directly to the right of the messages tab on the right-hand side, and let us all know how you're currently looking to build Mindshare before those intent signals appear. And so while you're doing that, responding to that poll, I wanted to share some context about on why we're hosting this event virtually, this Mindshare Virtual 2025. So about 2.5 weeks ago, let me stop my share here. We actually took this event on the road. We were hosting executive in-person events with different marketing executives in San Francisco and in New York. And we had some really, really incredible conversations. We had speakers from marketing leaders from companies like Box, Data Miner, MetLife, Seismic, and they shared their experiences and insights on how they're building mindshare before intent signals appear. So I'm going to play a quick video right now just to show you a quick sneak peek on what happened in those events and how we're going to continue building on those conversations here today.
Nobody goes to a website now and it's like the very first time they've been there. They've already done so much research in the background. You're not kind of thinking about that, like how to get into that mind share. You're really left out of the conversation early.
If I want to work someone through an early sales process without a person in the room, video is a great way to do that.
In the long run, you'll see more and more B2C style marketing is going to show up in B2B.
Where's my audience? What do they listen to? What do they consume?
What are you putting out there that's thought leadership, that's educational, that's putting your point of view into the audience that you're trying to garner that mind share with?
All right, so as you can see from this recap, there is this major shift that's happening in how forward-thinking marketers are approaching pipeline generation. A lot of marketing leaders are recognizing that traditional demand gen capture models are delivering diminishing returns because only that 5% is in there, and buying communities are expanding, and then content and saturation continues to intensify. Especially, a lot of AI generate content and cluttering the space. So I'm really excited to introduce Devin Reed, my guest today, who has been at the forefront of this shift in the B2B marketing strategy. Devin, please join me on stage. Devin is the founder of The Reader. He's previously led content at Gong and Clari, where he really pioneered content strategies that built massive mindshare in really, really competitive markets. Hi, Devin. Welcome to Mindshare 2025. How's it going?
Hello. Fantastic. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. You were able to join us in the New York event. What did you think of the event?
I was going to say, even if I wasn't prompted, I was at the New York event and I loved it. I had a fantastic time. The content was great. I loved the opening keynote by the CEO. I didn't think it was Tom. That was my favorite, but the venue was also great. And there was a mentalist that really basically read my mind and gave me the creeps, but in the best way. It was very entertaining. So I loved it.
Totally. You had you got pulled up on stage. I remember that.
Yes. And for a little more context, folks, he through a few questions figured out who my childhood best friend was, despite me not saying any real clues. So it was very memorable and stole mindshare forever for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So Devin, just before you came on stage, we did ask the audience here to share a little bit about how they're currently building mindshare. So I'm going to share the results of that poll right now. So it looks like about 26% of all of you are creating video content, which is great. Hopefully today you'll get more tips and practical insights on how you can continue doing this. It looks like, publishing educational thought leadership content is about 24%. Social media, same, around 24%. Some of you, about 6% of you, are creating podcast or audio content. That's definitely having its moment in the B2B world right now, creating a video podcast. Devin, I know you have your own here. Community building, a huge fan of that. That's a big strategy we have here at Goldcast. And a few of you are not actively focused on mindshare and still wondering about what it is today. So excited to get you guys learning more about how you can do more with video to build mindshare. Devin, any thoughts on these stats here?
This is pretty much where I would have guessed, and I'm doing the top four, by the way. The top four being the top, not necessarily ranked, but I would say this is about right. And I think video is probably leading towards demos, and also thought leadership can be multiple channels, right? So I like seeing this, and I hope that the video and social are the ones that we continue to see grow this year, because I think those are some of the best investments to make right now.
Awesome. I'm going to leave that poll open, so feel free to keep answering that as you all come on in. Let me stop sharing this now. Okay, well, Devin, thanks for joining us today. I really, want to start the conversation here about your experience implementing Mindshare first marketing at your previous organizations. Mm-hmm. What prompted that? I know that you didn't have a traditional marketing background. You really came from the sales side. So help me understand, how you really got into Mindshare marketing, because you are a very early pioneer of that concept.
Thank you. And saying I don't have a traditional marketing background is the very kind way of saying I had zero marketing experience when I started. So, hey everybody, nice to be here. I started in sales for the first 6 years of my career. And so I was also in like startup SaaS world, like sub couple hundred employees for the most part. So usually wherever I was selling, they didn't really know who we were, what we did, or why they should get on a call with me. And so I'd spent majority of my, that half of my career really like chasing leads and trying to earn attention and trying to earn credibility on a 30-second cold call or, a quick outbound email. And I realized just how hard it was. And honestly, it sucks. Like that's a really tough way to go to market, is kind of do one-to-one with your, via sales. And so when I became head of content at Gong, I was at AE there and moved over to head of content. I had this rule that we don't talk about our product for 1 full year. Now, that was top of funnel. So there's other teams and other people, that were talking about the product, but we were responsible for thought leadership. So social media, podcasts, webinars, etc. And we had this rule of we don't talk about the product. And it's because, and I told my team this, like, no one gives a shit about our product. Not yet, right? So what I mean by that was this thing that had come out. I think it's the B2B Institute came out with this recently, which was the 95-5 rule. I don't know if that's the exact number, but for the most part, 95% of the market is not in market to make a purchasing decision. So of all the people we could sell to, most don't know us, don't care, or at least don't care yet. There's that 5% that do, and that's great for capturing demand, things like SEO, paid ads, things like that. You might get people who are already looking for, in the case of Gong, conversation or revenue intelligence. But really, I wanted to focus on that 95%, because what I wanted to do was to earn trust at scale. I wanted them to know us, like us, and trust us. So eventually, when they were in market, we would be the first ones that they call, the first place they go to find a demo, right? So I know that there's a lot of power in getting that mind share. And so I wanted it. I wanted all the attention on LinkedIn for our company. And it worked because we could either nudge people into being in market, or again, when there was time, Gong in this instance was the first call, and we got a lot of inbound demos based on this strategy.
Awesome. It's kind of similar to here at Goldcast. We really, when I first joined Goldcast about 3.5 years ago, we really started out with a more community first approach, which is, also about building mindshare. We created a Slack community called the Event Marketers Club. And that was my one rule, that, the sales team can lurk in there, but they're not allowed to sell. They're not allowed to prospect. They can watch the conversation. But the whole point is to create a safe and trusted space for people to engage and talk about some of the problems that they were having, for us to listen, to be a helpful resource, to be that go-to number one place where people ask for help. And eventually, over time, we saw people coming inbound from to Goldcast from the community. So I think it's definitely, a very similar approach. And I think many different companies can have similar approaches through different executions to really create that, resource, that trusted resource. So Devin, in your experience, what types of content are the most effective for building mindshare before intent signals appear?
So the first thing to think of is play where your audience is spending time today digitally, right? So everyone that makes or influences a buying decision is on some sort of social media. I know for a long time they're like, people over 12 or people over like 22 are not on TikTok, and like that's not true. Or like LinkedIn is just for I don't know, whoever, and executives aren't on LinkedIn. That's also for sure not true. So the first thing is find the channels that your audience spends the most time. Safe bet, when everyone got their in-house job, you get a corporate email address. So email is a fantastic place to build that channel. Social media, most likely LinkedIn, right? So I start there first because that's kind of the playing ground. In terms of content, there's kind of two that I have seen be the most successful, and therefore I do, which one is just text, and second is visuals, or video rather, not just visuals, excuse me, video. And so the reason being is text is really cheap. It's really quick and easy. And so if you're a good writer, you can get information across really quickly. But the challenge of being text only is it doesn't give what I call like proximity. So for example, when you read a LinkedIn post, I don't like from you, Kelly, like, yeah, I might get your vibe and your energy some, but it's very different than if I get to see and hear, your intonation, your facial expressions, your delivery. I'm going to feel like I know you even more if I get more access to you via video. And so I like to bounce back and forth between those two. And the beautiful part is you can repurpose a text post to become a script for a video. And you can, if you do a quick video, you can repurpose that transcript for a text post. And so I love the ability to focus on one or the other, knowing I can repurpose and get the best out of both.
Yeah, I want to go into that a little bit more. So you have talked a lot about content assembly lines, really being able to scale your content production, doing more with less. You have this really great content framework. I'm a huge proponent for video first, because video is the hardest to do. Once you start with video, you can really, sky's the limit on what you can take that piece of content and turn it into. Like you said, Devin, you can, take the video, take the script, and there it is, your text content. So Devin, you have a video or a content creation framework. I'm going to pull that slide up, and I'd love to hear you talk about that content assembly line approach and how, this framework can help teams scale building Mindshare, building content. So let me pull up that slide here.
Absolutely. And shout out to Jillian. She said, when I think of Devin, I think of content waterfalls. Fun fact, that we all know the TLC song, Don't Go Chase. So I'm not going to sing because I can't. Fun fact, when I was a kid, I thought it was Don't Go Jason Waterfalls. And I always wondered who this Jason guy was until I was much older. So fun fact on content today. Yeah. So, okay, this was something that I came up with. Maybe I wasn't the first. Who knows where an idea originates. But when I started as head of content, I was just a team of one. And then, eventually I got my first hire. And so what we had to do is figure out how can me and this guy, Jonathan, how do we create as much high quality content as possible, knowing that we're pretty limited in, the hours in the day. And so what we decided to do was put all of our eggs in the original research basket. So if anyone's familiar with Gong Labs, we would basically analyze millions of data points of different sales interactions, and we would find these counterintuitive insights. And once we had one of those, that's when we realized, hey, we can publish this in our primary channel. So think of the big green box thought leadership report, right? Usually a written asset. And then we can repurpose and distribute it at the same time. So we would say, great, we have a blog post. Now we're going to make 3 LinkedIn posts just based off of this data point. And the post would vary based on different angles, right? Ways you could apply this. Why is it counterintuitive? Reframes, right? So there's different ways you can kind of slice and dice it. And then what we do is we would look for signals and say, how did people react to this? Did we get we also distribute it via email. So do we get email replies? Did we get a lot of LinkedIn engagement? And if we kind of hit this tipping point of it feels good and we've got some benchmark engagement metrics, then we would repurpose into a webinar, right? You've already got the data. You already have a lot of talking points via this different content you've used to distribute it. And now you've got a webinar. After the webinar, what do you have? You've got video clips, right? So you can see how this cascades down or waterfalls down from an original primary source. And this is the kind of methodology, if you will, that I always tell different B2B marketing teams that they should consider, because if you just try to create all those green boxes from scratch, that's how you get spread really thin. Typically burnout goes up and quality goes down just because we are spread too thin. And so this is one way that I like to both recycle and reuse content to basically double to triple the ROI of your content efforts.
This is great. I think so. This is the exact strategy we have here at Goldcast. Every time we have any kind of virtual event, even like when I first started about 3.5 years ago, anytime we'd have a fireside chat, a coffee talk, or anything like that, we'd take that video and repurpose it into a blog. If we had a virtual summit, something like this today, we'd actually be able to turn it into an ebook with different chapters for the different sessions. And we started doing this even before ChatGPT and AI really became a big thing about 2 years ago. And it was a lot of manual work. It was tough because you still had to, have a video, upload it, download it, transcribe it, and then recap it, manually have writers write the posts. So Devin, as you're talking about, the content assembly line, having teams scale this, how has AI changed the approach to content marketing and this particular framework? I'd love to hear how, as you're advising marketing teams now, how AI kind of comes into play in executing this waterfall.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel very old already, being like, back in my day, we wrote copy by hand. We didn't have AI to repurpose all this stuff, but it makes it much easier now. And so I would say first is, if you're using AI, don't use AI to replace your thinking. You can use it to be a good thought partner, and you can use it to write faster, and you can use it as a thought partner to come up with some more original ideas, but you're not going to just be able to put in even a great prompt and get that big, amazing thought leadership report in the top left. Right. So the first thing is still use your brain, the connections that you can make and the experiences you have and your subject matter experts have. ChatGPT, all those AI tools, they don't have it, right? It doesn't have all the information of the world in it. So I just like to kind of start there, like don't over index on it. But that said, you can, and I have and do today, use prompts to help with all those little arrows, right? So if you have your thought leadership report going down to a blog post, to a CEO keynote, et cetera, those are all basically, think of this as now a workflow, and all of those arrows can be a prompt. And so what I do is every week I use these prompts and I kind of refine them. And the goal, again, is to create highly engaging content. Now I can do it much quicker. So there's one way to say is, yes, I can create more, and that's great. But another way is, can I just fill out this content waterfall even faster to give me more time to maybe focus on distribution efforts, thought leadership at the very beginning of it, right? So it kind of just depends on how you want to think about it. If you need more, great. I haven't actually found that most teams need a lot more. They usually just need more intentionality and more quality in their marketing efforts. And I've seen AI be super helpful on the repurposing long form video to short form video. Obviously, I use Goldcast to do that, as well as using Goldcast to do things like take a long form video and turn it into key takeaways that can go into written content as well.
Awesome. So we actually have a really timely question that kind of goes into my next question, is really, really getting your teams on board with this strategy, because, I think maybe at a smaller organization, you have, one social media person and, one digital person to work with on your team. But as team scale at mid-market enterprise companies, things get even more siloed during execution. And so a good question from Christina is, let me share that. Do you have any tips for getting your product, your content, digital, and other marketing teams aligned on the strategy? And when's the best time to kick that off? Most organizations I've been a part of, yearly marketing plans tend to be built in silos. As a result, event strategy isn't usually included in those early planning stages, which often means the content we create at events doesn't get repurposed effectively. I think this is a huge challenge that larger teams are having. So Devin, I'd be curious to hear how you would approach this.
Yeah, it's a great question, Christina. It's a bit of a long answer, so I'll try to make it as short as possible. The first is what what Kelly just showed on the screen is really a new way to operate. So before you can, and that's the way we act. So you have to change the way you think about marketing and content production before we can change the way we act. So typically your head of marketing, CMO, has to be the one bought into this new methodology. And they have to make sure that the whole team understands why you're making the change from these probably multiple silos to this new system. And the reason why is really obvious, in my opinion. One, you're going to get more output, which is important for the business. But also at the personal level, most marketers, especially content marketers that I talk to, are feeling a little overworked. They're having to do more with less. And I think we're hungry for a new way to do our jobs more effectively, other than just doing the same old way, but putting in more hours, right? So it's like something has to change. And so when you kind of walk them through like, hey, we're going to try a new methodology here, you usually get a lot of early buy-in because we've all felt that the old way is not working. One of the ways you can get started, especially if you're in a very large organization and it's a lot of change management, to say, hey, 50, 150 marketers, we're all going to do one big flywheel together, one big content waterfall together, is you can start on a single channel or pick one of these silos that's already built in your organization and have them build their own content waterfall, document it and prove that it works. And then you can scale it across the organization. So for example, we had done this at Clari, previous company I'd worked at. We started on the channel basis actually before we went to a larger waterfall. And so we were helping we were building our LinkedIn presence on the company page as well as our CEO's page. And so one of the things we realized was, hey, every week, or maybe it's every 2 weeks, our CEO has an all hands and it's recorded. And he says some really great stuff. Obviously, you have to be careful what's internal only versus can be shared externally. But right there was a great source, right? So the beginning of that waterfall, and then we would write his LinkedIn content off of that. And sometimes we'd write his newsletter off of that too. And it's all his ideas. We're just using AI and our writing skills, right, to make external facing content. And so you can run that right there for a month, 2 months, maybe a quarter, show that it works. And then you can say other teams are going to actually are going to notice your results and they're going to want to say, hey, how are you doing that? And then you can expand into that as well and start to include other primary sources of content, like a webinar, like this, like events, as you mentioned in your question, and start to build in those processes, get more technology, and you're basically scaling it out little by little until it's how the whole marketing team, or at least majority of the asset creating teams make their content.
Awesome. So Christine, I'm hearing that getting executive buy-in from the top down is super important to, get the strategy buy-in, and then to start small, start with, one asset, one channel, and build from there and get your buy-ins from the other teams after seeing success. But getting that executive buy-in from the strategy is super, super important. And I think in today's day and age where the mantra of doing more with less is still very, very, present. Can't be that hard to, can't be hard to get buy-in for being able to repurpose content that lives on forever. All right. So my next question for you, Devin, is measurement. What is your approach to measuring content effectiveness, specifically to Mindshare building, and how's that different from metrics that build pipeline and demand? Like, this is definitely ultimately pipeline is what matters the most, but that's a lagging indicator, right? If you're looking to get buy-in in organizations to build content for Mindshare building, that 95% before they're in market, what metrics matter the most in terms of proving out that effectiveness towards Mindshare?
Yeah, ultimately, if your content strategy isn't driving inbound, then something's broken. Now, the reason why people say, why should I start Mindshare marketing, is because I don't know any SaaS company that has too much inbound right now, where they're like, Kelly, we've got enough leads, please stop. The sales team's hitting 200% to quota, right? Like that just isn't happening in today's era. And so when you start to say, okay, the engine we've built, let's just say you are hitting your pipeline metrics, or you're within that 80 to 100% range, right? So you're doing, good to great. You still want more. You still have aggressive growth targets. And so if you start to say, hey, we've exhausted the current plan, let's go after the folks who aren't in market yet, right? Let's go, the first call principle I mentioned earlier. Let's try to tap into that. So we're the first one that people call. So that's the way I kind of frame it. And it's ultimately about inbound demos. Like, that's what we're looking for. Now, that said, that can take a little bit of time, depending on your market, depending on the maturity of your market and your sales cycle duration. Right. So the way I break it up is I have the channel specific metrics. So if you think about your content waterfall or your flywheel, what are the channels that you've chosen to invest in? You don't have to be everywhere at once. You just got to be great at a couple things. Again, I said email, LinkedIn, webinars, what have you. So you should have your channel specific metrics that range from kind of engagement through conversion. Right. So if you're like hosting an event like this, like, how many people do we get to register? How many people showed up? What was their watch time? Right. So to show, hey, is the program itself successful? Great. Now, the way you got to do is that there's sometimes a small leap of faith that people that are attending, if we can get people that are making and influencing buying decisions to be on an event like this, there's a small leap of faith. It's very small, in my opinion, that eventually they will be more interested in our product, whether we reach out to them or they come inbound. right? So that's why you're making that investment. And then that small leap of faith is typically pipeline sourced, number of demos, or maybe stage one opportunities, depending on how rigid you like to be, and then pipeline influenced. And ultimately, those numbers should be going up quarter over quarter, assuming that your marketing output is at the same rate, right? And so that's how you can do it at the both kind of like IC manager level. Is your program, is your channel being successful? And then two, usually at the kind of director VP level, are all these programs together, are we starting to see the inbound pie get larger? And hopefully, if you use self-reported attribution, you're starting to see direct signals of people saying LinkedIn or Mindshare Marketing event summit or whatever those things are, to give you a little bit more proof that the outputs are resulting. You're converting attention into pipeline.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And so, can you talk a little bit about the difference between brand marketing metrics and things that are used to measure mind share? Because I think the two can be conflated. Some people use them interchangeably. I think there's a big difference between brand marketing initiatives and mind share building initiatives. I think mind share building initiatives is actually full funnel. It's really making sure that you have that thread of conversation throughout that entire buying journey versus brand. There's different brand channels. You can throw a billboard together. There's very specific brand initiatives out there that have its own brand metrics. But I'm curious to hear your point of view on, brand marketing versus mindshare marketing.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw one in there, which is performance marketing real quick, just to get out of the delineation there, which to be clear, I think there's no such thing as performance marketing. Reason being, everything is brand marketing, everything is performance marketing, because every single thing of your marketing strategy should have some performance element to it. Pausing, and if anyone wants to type mean arguments to me in the chat, go for it. We can chat about that. And everything is brand because every single time you interact with your market, that is leaving some sort of impression, no pun intended, and you're making a mark. So it's like, that's your brand too. So everything is brand, everything is performance. It's more of a scale of how much brand versus how much performance. Anyway, I wanted to start there. When it comes to mindshare marketing, I'm looking for audience growth actually is the number one thing, because that's basically folks telling you, whether it is on a rented channel like LinkedIn, right? I have gone to your company page or Kelly's LinkedIn page and I have clicked follow or connect. I want to get more information from you. That to me shows I have some of your attention and you're basically asking me to get more mindshare. Like you're saying, I want more. Same thing with email subscribers. Every time someone downloads a piece of content or just like actively joins your newsletter or email list, they are saying, hey, you're now a welcome guest. I want you to come over to my inbox. I want you to entertain me and teach me. And that's a phenomenal asset, because everything in marketing is easier when you have an audience. And because now you have a built-in group of people who are anticipating your next feature or product drop or your next thought leadership report or an invite to your next event, right? And so to me, audience is the number one thing in terms of a signal for mindshare. The next one is actually kind of goes back to a little bit more on the engagement metrics on some of those channels, which basically just shows, hey, of the group, are they growing? And then of that group, is their engagement with us also growing? That's the way I kind of look at it to say, hey, are we getting more attention? And again, that mind share. So those are ones I look for, but I'm curious if you've got other options as well. I don't think there's really only one way to do it either.
Yeah, I like your metric on sort of like audience sizing, because I think, that's the whole point of Mindshare, is capturing that 95% people that you may not already even know about, that, is in your target audience, that eventually will be, in market to buy. I think we've all been inundated with all these intent signals over the past couple of years. That was definitely the buzzword: intent signals everywhere. And when you have intent, you're a known person. But what about all those unknown people? The point is to get them to be known, get them to convert into some kind of email subscriber list, so then you can start building that more direct relationship from the brand to that individual. So yeah, I really, really like that the way of framing it, the audience sizing. Devin, I want to ask you a little bit about video. You touched on it earlier, saying that video is a very powerful way to build mindshare. You've had a lot of success with video. You have a very, very popular video podcast. I'd love to hear, at your time at Gong and Clari, how you've invested in video, how video has always been so powerful. I think it's no longer, a myth that, video is powerful because we all lean into it. We are all glued to our phones. Even LinkedIn has a video tab now. We're all obsessed with TikTok, which that short form video format. So curious to hear, more in depth, like why video is so powerful for Mindshare as compared to other formats.
Absolutely. I think TikTok made the obvious unignorable, which is that we love video and sometimes, and maybe arguably we like short form, but there's still a place for long form too. So I've done all sorts of video content at this point in my career. And I would say it all kind of comes down to making edutainment content, or content that both educates and entertains. And you can slide that scale back and forth, right? Sometimes it's great to have more entertainment value with maybe a little bit of insight or not much at all the way to a more informative video. Again, going back to what you said, depending on where you are in your funnel or where you are in your buying journey, right? So typically, when I'm making videos, if they're a little bit more entertainment based, they're usually more top of funnel because I'm trying to get attention, and I'm probably putting it on social because I want to get attention, pull people into my sphere. And then I can, if they're interested or maybe in a buying process, then they're looking for more information, right? To make a decision. They don't need to be entertained as much, but we still don't want to make boring content. So that's what I think about that. In terms of video content, I kind of bucket into like net new and repurposing. So there's things like repurposing any long form content. So basically like events and any video podcasts. I love recording those, cutting them up into shorter video content. And then sometimes, like for my video podcast, going out and putting a lot of effort into, that primary source of content so that I have evergreen stuff that I can repurpose across my newsletter, across my LinkedIn, across Instagram and TikTok. And so when I make that investment, I know that I'm not just getting a point in time. Like today, this video is not just a point in time. It's going to fuel that content waterfall for weeks, months, maybe even over a couple quarters. And so for my kind of strategy has been usually around 6 months, I record 4 of these they're high production, but they don't have to be long form videos. And I have a very intentional plan and playbooks to say, great, I'm going to get these on YouTube and Spotify as kind of like my primary channels. But really, I know I'm going to repurpose it on my newsletter, give value and entertain, and also put a link right back to it. So I like this kind of 1-2 punch of I'm repurposing content while also distributing the source content. So you're getting more of that momentum and more engagement.
That's awesome. We actually have a very, as we're talking about video and, being able to use video to repurpose, you have that sort of split framework. Actually, for everybody who wants to get access to Devin's waterfall framework, if you head over to the Docs tab that's directly to the right of the Polls tab, you can get that copy of that slide. So you can bookmark it, save it on your desktop as that map for how to, get the most out of your thought leadership content. But we have a timely question on repurposing for impact and getting more viewers. So I'd love to actually share that question. It's a question from Ricardo Pinto from the chat here. Let's see, share. When it comes to webinar series or product focused webinars, what are the most effective ways to repurpose the content to not only maximize the overall impact, but also drive greater engagement and attract more views to our on-demand webinars? What are your thoughts here, Devin?
I love this question, Ricardo. Okay, so it's a principle called move the free line back. And what I mean by that is usually when people are promoting an on-demand webinar, it's usually kind of like a quick what happened and maybe why you should check it out, and then like a link. So it's not usually like super enticing, right? It's kind of like seeing a movie poster. Yeah, it might be interesting. If Denzel Washington's on it, I'm probably going to go watch it. But like for the most part, it doesn't give me enough context to really get interested. So instead of doing a movie poster, do a movie trailer and move the free line back. So you're actually giving away some of this content. So let's say, for example, you're on LinkedIn and you're going to post on LinkedIn. Instead of just saying, hey, go check out Devin and Kelly, it was a really good time, put the highlight, the best part of this webinar, make it a 30-second, 90-second clip, make that the core of your content for your, this post, and give away the value. And then say, hey, if you want more, you can go download the whole thing or go access the whole thing. Here's how. And the reason why this is more effective, and I know it might seem counterintuitive, is one, you're going to get a more engaging LinkedIn post. Therefore, you're going to get a more engaging LinkedIn audience. You're going to grow your engagement and your following with this type of content. And two, people are going to, because they're more engaged, they're going to be more likely to convert. Right. So the whole goal of this post is to get them to watch a clip of this webinar with the ultimate goal of getting them to convert to watching more of it. And so I've tested this out. It is much more effective to do this kind of movie trailer approach. And going back to what you said, Kelly, like what would prevent people from doing this? Well, now you have AI. It's literally easier than ever with your software. I do this all the time and have my clients do it too, where it's like you don't have to spend weeks or thousands of dollars to get these clips, these highlight reels, and to promote them and publish them. You can do it in a matter of like this afternoon. Like I know y'all showed me at the New York event, there was like a keynote at whatever it was, 3 p.m. and y'all had a clip and showed it back at like 3:45 p.m. And it was like a beautifully edited clip that was great for social. So like it's very possible now. It kind of just goes back to like switching your mind set. I almost said Mindshare again. Switching your mindset from kind of a promotional outlet to more of a publication outlet. And again, getting that engagement first.
Yeah, I love that approach, sort of like just teasing the best parts of it to get people to go back to watch the whole thing to get more value. So don't be afraid of giving things away, because I think that's how you hook them in is sharing the best part of any kind of video or event experience. I'm going to go into a lot of our questions. We have a lot of questions from our audience here. So it's a great segue to kickstart our Q&A segment. If you have any questions for Devin, please head over to the Q&A tab and answer them. Check out some of the questions that have already been asked, and you can also upvote them so I can see which questions are most popular that I can start there. So let me pull up another question. So a question from Jenny here. When creating so much content, it's difficult to prioritize distribution for every piece. Any best practices or tiering methods for thinking about how to approach this?
Yes, I almost gave an audible, like heavy sigh, Jenny, because I've been there. So what has happened to me before was you hit this point of scale, right? Where you have like product marketing, maybe you have a brand marketing team, content marketing, demand gen, like you have all these teams making things. It's not a little Dr. Seuss-esque there. But there's only so much room on your channels, right? Like you can't promote and distribute everything all the time the way people want, especially when you start to get to international teams. So what I did was create kind of like, in a way it's a checklist, but it's kind of like a framework. And basically what it did was on this side, all of the different types of assets that we create. Right. So if we're creating a cheat sheet, if we're creating an edutainment how-to video, if we're creating all these things. And then the other axis was all the distribution channels that we have at our disposal. So LinkedIn, don't list all the ones under the sun, just the ones that you actually use. And then there was like a green check mark if that's what we always do. I can't remember what there was. It was like a maybe. There's like a different emoji for like maybe, and then an X for no. And basically what I did was I went around to the different team leads and basically kind of got their input and approval so we could have a go-to guide. So, hey, when you create a thing, you know which distribution channels you have access to. And if it's a maybe, you know who to go to get kind of approval to get access to that channel. And this was at least one way to kind of direct traffic in a way to help people also remove the guesswork, because sometimes you're adding new people to your team, switching roles and responsibilities, even if it's the same personnel, and people just don't know like exactly where do I push publish. And so just having this quick slide that everyone agreed to was super helpful, and at least knowing, hey, when I have a certain piece of content, I know exactly where to go to distribute it. And then hopefully you have a playbook created for how to actually do that distribution.
Yeah, it really starts, with your content strategy, right? Because, content fuels all these different channels, but you have to have a content strategy when you first start creating. And so it's really making sure that that conversation happens at the strategy level.
Yeah, one of the trigger phrases that I hear, or like if I hear someone says like, oh, sometimes we do this, or sometimes it's this, and some like the word sometimes it's kind of a dangerous word in your strategy. You want to have that mapped out. It's not a bad thing if you're saying it, just become aware and realize, okay, great. If we're saying sometimes, it's because we don't know for sure. So let's maybe take a step back and figure out what are our for sure, make those decisions so you know exactly what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, it's that sometimes versus consistency, making sure that there's like you said, a playbook, a play for, how you're operationalizing it, or else you're just kind of like shooting darts against the wall and it's hard to keep track of what's working. Awesome. Next
Also,
question.
what
We
worked.
have just,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
Kelly, go ahead.
we have just about 5 minutes left, and we have so many questions. So I want to make sure that we keep going through them. So our next question is from Jenna. Let's see. Can I share this? Stop sharing. It's not. It's
We can see the
my
question here.
You can see Jenna's question? Okay, great. So it says, how do you connect this type of marketing to revenue outcomes, since this is targeting folks before buying signals?
Yep. So one, you got to get buy-in beforehand, right? To say, hey, we're going to do a new type of marketing, and we're going to measure audience growth and engagement as our kind of early and mid indicators, right? So you have to say that's what we're looking for first to see if this is working. You're never going to see, in my experience, more revenue or pipeline before you're going to see more audience growth and engagement, right? So you have to like map out, like there's like, let's say it's like engagement, audience growth, pipeline. Let's just say those are your kind of three, buckets there. You have to be able to measure, say, hey, these are the metrics for each of these buckets. Here's the outputs we're going to deliver. And then over time, whether it be probably monthly, have some sort of scorecard to show, hey, we're growing here, it's going to convert there. Like that's the goal. And we have to give it a little bit of time to play out. That said, you can't over-rotate Jen and say, great, we're only going to do, Mindshare marketing at this very early stage. And trust me, and, give me 9 months and we'll have an audience. Like, no, we can't do that either. So you do still need to split your overall like quarterly or annual plan to have kind of like short-term pipeline wins mixed in with this Mindshare marketing approach.
Awesome. Next question we have actually from the chat here. So let me share that from the chat. All right, from Tammy. What are your thoughts about gated content in general, the whole gate or ungate debacle? Our CMO prefers not to gate, but it's the only way we can truly track performance and follow up on potential leads. Devin, what camp are you in?
I love gating content, and I will argue on that hill. No hill is worth dying on, folks. But here's the truth: people don't actually hate gated content. We hate bad gated content. We hate when the trust is broken, when you give someone your email address because the landing page made all these great promises, and then you get the content and it doesn't deliver on those promises. That's when we get irritated, and that's when we say gated content sucks. Gated content is just a tactic, and it can work really well. That said, if you don't have an email strategy, or you're not intentionally building and engaging your email list, then gating your content might not make a lot of sense, right? Because otherwise you're putting up a barrier and then you're not doing anything with the folks that convert. So that's one way to kind of think about it. I know we don't have time to go all the way deep into the gate or no gate, but the way I think about it is I only gate top of funnel content. So things that is product agnostic content, so good you'd almost buy it, you'd almost pay for it. I want it to be that good. And when it comes to demos, you can argue yes or no to like pre-recorded demos to gate that. But if folks are in that middle funnel learning about our product, I would be so grateful that they want to come learn about our product. There's only 5% of them. Don't put a gate in the way. Make it as easy as possible. And then either make your ungated demo so great that it converts and people can't help but to come and get more information or not. But at the very least, it's okay to gate content people. Tell them Devin Reed sent you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you're in that gated camp, because I feel like that's kind of polarizing. A lot of people are on that ungated camp. So I like that hot take, Devin. My thought here is it really just depends on the content and depends on the stage of the funnel. If it's top of funnel, and you really, I think it's, we can make that judgment call on whether or not something deserves, payment. I would say like your information is payment. If it's, very, very, very top of funnel. And I think that keeping it ungated gives that great user experience. But as soon as you get, middle funnel, where you're talking about like maybe one sheets or, product information, product demos, like gating is definitely much more appropriate to track that performance. Because again, when you're building Mindshare, a lot of it is just like having those breadcrumbs that people go and consume your content, and maybe not even make that attribution to your brand until much later on. But it's all part of that customer journey through like content consumption. All right, so we are actually at time now. So Devin, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for all the great questions here and for being so engaging in the chat. Our next session is going to be starting in just about a minute, where we're going to be unveiling something really exciting. I saw something about really crisp video. So stay tuned, stay here to learn more about this. But thank you, Devin, for joining us to kick off Mindshare Virtual 2025. Everybody, please stay tuned for the next session.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.